Hi, I'm Nora. My parents always said family holds tight. But after I saved our ranch with $60,000, they wrote me out of the will and handed everything to my sister. It wasn't just the cash. It was the quiet, the rewriting of history, the slow, deliberate erasure of me. Ever felt like the toughest one was also the easiest to betray? Before we dive in, tell me what time you're reading and where from. Drop it in the comments. Let's begin. The gate groaned the way it always had when I pulled into the gravel driveway. Dust swirled behind my old truck as I stepped out, boots sinking into familiar earth. That Sunday afternoon in late March felt warmer than usual, like the world was pretending all was well. I knew better. Willow Creek Ranch never hid anything. The creaking barn doors, the slant in the porch, the silence between my parents. All of it told stories, and I had been part of those stories, or so I thought. Inside, the air carried that mix of wood polish and coffee grounds. My mom, Clara, was at the kitchen table, glasses low on her nose, sifting through a cluttered pile of envelopes. "Afternoon, Nori," she said, not looking up, only she still called me that. "Hey, Mom," I replied, slipping off my coat and draping it over the chair. I had driven in from Wichita like I did every other weekend, habit, guilt, duty, maybe all three. She gestured at the pile. "Can you help sort these? Your dad's been meaning to file our taxes, but you know how he gets." I didn't mind. Paperwork was simple. Emotions? Those were trickier. I sat across from her, sorting utility bills, bank statements, insurance forms. Nothing unusual until it was. A thick manila envelope caught my eye, not because it looked significant, but because someone had labeled it estate transfer. My fingers paused. "What's this?" Clara glanced up and shrugged. "Probably something from the lawyer. Just sort it." I opened it. Inside was a neatly typed document. A will. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a list. Something dividing things evenly between me and my younger sister, Lila, who's 28. Instead, I saw this. All assets, including property, financial accounts, and belongings, are to be transferred to Lila May upon the death of both parents. And then one sentence near the bottom. "We love both our daughters." That's it. No mention of my name, no clause, no fallback. Just Lila. For a moment, I felt nothing. I blinked, read it again. I checked the date, 6 months ago. My name wasn't there, not even as an alternate beneficiary. My ears started ringing. $60,000. That's how much I'd wired from my savings 2 years ago to stop this ranch from foreclosure. I'd sent the money without hesitation. No loan terms, no contract, just a daughter saving what she thought was hers, too. Meanwhile, Lila was in Colorado, doing some influencer retreat, posting daily reels about ranchcore vibes and how open fields spark inner calm. I took a breath. "Mom," I said, carefully folding the will and laying it flat on the table. "What is this?" She looked up from a cable bill. When she saw what I held, her face paled. "Oh, that. You found that, huh?" I didn't answer. She shifted, pulled off her glasses, and used that gentle tone she leaned into to dodge conflict. "You're doing fine, Nora. You don't need the land or the house." Couldn't blink. "So, this is real." She hesitated. "Lila, she's always struggled. You know that. Her online stuff isn't steady. We just wanted to make sure she'd be secure." "And what am I?" I asked, voice flat. "Some kind of emotional support mule with a checkbook?" That's when my dad, Henry, walked in. He had that rigid farmer's stride, still in his dirt-stained jeans from the fields. He paused when he saw me. "What's going on?" "She found the will," Clara said quickly, not meeting my eyes. Henry sighed, like I was blowing things out of proportion. "We didn't mean for it to be a surprise." "Then why didn't you tell me?" I asked, jaw tightening. He rubbed the back of his neck. "It's complicated." "No, it wasn't. You didn't think I deserved to know I'm not in it at all." "You don't need it," my mom whispered, as if repeating it made it truer. "You're the resilient one, Nori. You always were." And there it was. Resilience as a penalty. All those years I worked double shifts, drove 6 hours in snow to fix the broken well pump, sent money when Lila missed the insurance deadline. None of that counted as love. It counted as self-sufficiency, as immunity from being considered. "You used my resilience to justify cutting me out," I said slowly. Clara's hands trembled. "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that," I said, standing. "I remembered the day I wired the money, walking into the bank in my dusty work pants, the teller's eyes widening at the amount. I told myself then, family first always. But that only worked if family included me, too. I looked at both of them. One wouldn't meet my eyes, the other acting like this was too complex for discussion. I folded the will back into its envelope and placed it on the table like a gauntlet thrown. Thanks for showing me where I stand. Clara flinched. Henry didn't move. I grabbed my coat, turned, and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't look back. I got in my truck, started the engine, and pulled out slowly. The sun was setting behind the silo, casting long shadows across the gravel. Halfway back to Wichita, my phone buzzed. I didn't check it. I hadn't deleted their numbers yet. Not out of kindness or indecision, but exhaustion. Somewhere in the fog between anger and weariness, I let the text stack up like dust on a shelf. Annoying, inevitable, easier to ignore than to clean. I sat cross-legged on my faded couch, the soft hum of my refrigerator the only sound in my one-bedroom apartment. The lights were off, save for a single lamp in the corner. My phone buzzed again on the coffee table. Missed call. Dad again. The name didn't sting like it did last week. Now it felt distant, like someone I used to know. I picked up the phone, not to answer, but to mute the vibration. The second I did, a new message appeared. Asterisk property taxes are due Friday. Can you send the transfer? Asterisk no greeting, no context, just a demand dressed as routine. I stared at it, my mouth curling into something not quite a smile, closer to disbelief. It was almost amusing. Almost. I tapped the screen, fingers hovering, then typed. I think Lila can handle it. The house is hers now, right? Sent. No punctuation, no warmth. Just the same detached tone they'd used with me. I set the phone down, stood, and walked to the kitchen. I needed a glass of water. Not because I was thirsty, but because I needed to do something grounded with my hands. Before I could turn on the tap, the phone buzzed again. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the texts, one after another, like a chorus of guilt in digital form. Asterisk, please don't do this. We need to talk. We just wanted your sister to feel secure. Asterisk, I leaned against the sink, letting the cold faucet run into my empty glass. The sound reminded me of the night I wired the 60 grand. I'd been in this same kitchen, fingers trembling as I typed the transfer details. I didn't ask for interest. I didn't draft a contract. I just did it because that's what family was supposed to mean. Now I was the villain. Another buzz. A longer message. She's been feeling like you look down on her. Mom wrote. Asterisk, we just wanted her to feel equal. You always make her feel small. Asterisk, I stared at the words, reading them over and over. So that was the narrative now. Not that I saved the ranch. Not that I worked 2 jobs while Lila chased aesthetics in alfalfa fields. No, the story was I made her feel small. Twist the knife, why don't you? I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my banking app and stared at the list of automatic drafts I'd been too drained to cancel last week. One for the ranch's electric bill, one for the feed supplier, one for the septic service. I deleted all 3, no hesitation. Then I opened a note on my phone and wrote, you are not required to set yourself ablaze to keep others warm. It wasn't poetry. It wasn't original. But right then, it was mine. The phone buzzed again, a different number. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. Mr. Caldwell, our neighbor for over 2 decades in Willow Creek. He used to bring over sweet corn in July. His wife passed last winter. I hadn't heard from him since the funeral. The text was brief. Asterisk, hope you're doing okay. Heard you're not in the will. That's tough. Lila mentioned it at the diner last week. Word spreads. Asterisk. I blinked. So it wasn't just betrayal, it was public betrayal. The kind whispered over coffee and chicken fried steak. The kind that becomes small-town legend where the hardworking daughter gets erased, while the influencer sister preaches authenticity over biscuits and gravy. I clenched my jaw. My hands shook, not from sorrow anymore, but from something sharper, cleaner, determination. I texted Mr. Caldwell back. Asterisk, thanks. I'm okay. Asterisk, I wasn't, but I would be because silence wasn't working anymore. I walked back to the couch and stared at my phone. It buzzed again. Lila. I didn't need to open the full message, the preview said enough. Are you seriously doing this? Doing what? Setting boundaries? Stopping the handouts? I hadn't said a word to her, and already I was the villain in her rewritten story. I let the message sit on the lock screen. Then, without unlocking, I whispered to the empty room, "Yes, I'm seriously doing this. Because no one else was going to do it for me." I read Lila's message twice. Asterisk, "Are you seriously doing this?" Asterisk, I leaned back into the couch cushion, the tension in my shoulders rising like steam from a cracked pipe. I didn't respond right away. My fingers hovered above the screen as I let out a weary sigh, then typed back 3 words that cost me more than she'd ever know. "Yes, I'm done." I placed the phone screen down on the coffee table. I didn't need to see her typing bubbles. I didn't need another manipulative guilt spiral. I'd spent too much of my life apologizing for being stronger, more responsible than her. I turned on my laptop to distract myself. Maybe a documentary or some photos from last month's soil testing trip would settle me. Instead, the universe delivered one final blow. I opened Facebook, and there it was, top of the feed, a party. No, a full-blown celebration in our childhood backyard. Streamers, a bonfire, fold-out chairs, and a banner across the barn that read, "Asterisk thank you, Lila." Asterisk in the photo, Lila stood next to Mom, who was handing her an envelope. Both beamed, arms locked like a greeting card ad. The caption, "Asterisk so proud of our girl. She saved the ranch." Asterisk. It didn't register at first. I stared, blinking slowly, thinking I'd misread. But the post had over 200 likes. Family, friends, neighbors, even our old church pastor commented, "Such a strong woman. You deserve it all, Lila." That's when I saw the date. 2 weeks ago, the exact weekend I transferred $60,000 from my emergency fund to cover the balloon mortgage payment. My throat went dry. My hands clenched into fists. They took my sacrifice and turned it into her legacy. I clicked the photo again. My name wasn't mentioned once. Not a footnote, not a with family support, nothing. I didn't exist in their rewritten history. I slammed my laptop shut, not from impulse, but instinct. If I didn't close it, I'd have thrown it across the room. I stormed to the kitchen, needing to move to breathe. I opened the fridge, stared at a bottle of iced tea, then shut it again. No appetite, just the bitter taste of betrayal that had become too familiar. I reached for my phone and opened the banking app. I scrolled to scheduled payments. The ranch's electric bill, septic service, and the monthly draft labeled AgriSouth Mortgage, co-signed Willow Creek property. Still there, still draining my account. I tapped into the loan documents. My digital signature glared back, signed a year ago when the bank wouldn't approve refinancing under Lila's name alone. She had no credit, no job history, no assets. But I did. They called me the anchor, the dependable one, the safety net, and now, apparently, the invisible one. The phone buzzed. Incoming video call. "Lila." I should have let it go to voicemail, but something snapped. I answered. Her face filled the screen, tears already streaming. Her voice climbed before I could speak. "Why are you doing this, Nori? You're ruining everything. Do you know what people are saying? Why can't you just be happy for me for once?" I didn't yell. I didn't flinch. I spoke slowly. "Whose name is on the mortgage contract? Lila?" Her mouth hung open, eyes darting. "I didn't ask you to do that," she finally said. Wiping her face like that absolved her. And just like that, she erased me, as if my sacrifice was a favor I'd forced on her. "No, you didn't," I replied coldly. "But you had no problem taking credit for it." Silence. I thought the call dropped. But no, she was stunned. "Mom said it would look better this way," she whispered. "People don't get the technical stuff. Nobody needs to know the details." "No, they don't," I agreed. "But I do." Then I hung up. Not with rage, not with drama, just with the weary certainty of someone done playing silent benefactor. I stood in the kitchen, one hand on the counter, the other gripping my phone so tight my knuckles whitened. A memory hit, unbidden. Me at my desk, middle of the night, blinking away exhaustion as I reviewed wire instructions. The loan officer on the phone saying, "You're saving this place." Mom calling the next morning, voice soft with something like pride. "We don't deserve you, sweetheart." Apparently, they were right because now, according to everyone, they'd saved themselves. I walked to the living room, sat down, opened the banking app again. My finger hovered over the auto-payment setting. My thumb shook as I reached for pause recurring draft. I didn't flinch when I hit cancel. The payment vanished from my dashboard like it had never existed. The only thing more invisible was me. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders eased. It wasn't peace, not yet. But it was space. And space was the first step to freedom. The silence didn't last. That afternoon, while rinsing a coffee mug, my phone buzzed. A message from Rachel Summers, the event coordinator from Willow Creek I hadn't seen since last fall. Odd. She usually only texted about charity drives or church fundraisers. I dried my hands and opened it. It wasn't from her. It was a forwarded video from the Willow Creek Neighbors Facebook group. I tapped play. The image focused. A trimmed lawn, folding chairs under a tent, a banner between two trees. Community brunch honoring local heroes. My stomach tightened before I saw the podium. Lila stood behind it, hair curled, dress floral, smiling like the world revolved around her. Next to her, Councilman Everett read from a plaque. In recognition of Lila May's selfless financial contribution and steadfast dedication to saving Willow Creek Ranch, we proudly present. I paused the video. My hand shook as I set the phone down. I hadn't been invited. I hadn't known it was happening. And now I was watching my story rewritten in real time. Not a mention of me, not a footnote, not a with help from. Just Lila smiling as the crowd clapped and cameras clicked. I closed my eyes, tried to breathe. I thought the betrayal was done. I'd set my boundary, cut the cord. But they hadn't just taken my help. They'd repackaged it, rebranded it, replaced me in it. I reopened the video, forcing myself to watch it through. I needed to see what else they'd taken. They'd edited everything. The scene where Mom handed me the deed papers, gone. The photo by the barn where I held the loan folder, explaining terms to Dad, gone, cut, cropped, revised. I scrolled the comments. Asterisk, so proud of you, Lila. You're such an inspiration. We need more young women like you saving our land. Asterisk. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. I scrolled through our old family photo album online. That Thanksgiving shot by the tractor. I'd been in the original, hand on Dad's shoulder. In this version, I was gone, as if I'd never existed. I sat in the dark for what felt like hours, listening to the refrigerator hum. My thoughts spiraled, landing on something colder. Recognition. This wasn't new. I remembered Dad last year, after I'd vented about Lila skipping barn roof repairs again. She just needs encouragement, Nori, he'd said. No, she didn't need encouragement. She needed an audience, and they gave it to her on my shoulders. They turned my sacrifice into her stage. I stood slowly, walked to my bookshelf, and pulled out the dusty black journal I hadn't touched in months. I opened a fresh page and wrote, "You can edit the footage, but not the facts." Then I grabbed my laptop, started a new folder in Google Drive, Willow Creek Ranch. Inside, I dropped screenshots, bank receipts, scanned contracts, the wire transfer email thread, a photo of the deed with my signature, even the late-night text to Lila. Asterisk, I sent the 60. It's covered. Asterisk, it wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about reclaiming my truth. My truth didn't need applause. It needed documentation. I sat back, rereading every line. My hands felt steadier. I didn't know what I'd do with the folder yet, but I knew this. If they wanted to erase me, they'd have to try harder. I was done shrinking. My phone buzzed. Mom, sweetie, don't make this into something ugly. I stared at her words, the familiar script. Asterisk, sweetie, don't. Ugly. Asterisk translation. Stay quiet. Let her have the glory. Don't embarrass us. But I wasn't the one who made it ugly. That happened when they decided I didn't exist. I didn't answer. Instead, I clicked back into the Google Drive folder. My quiet archive of truths. I renamed each file by date, source, purpose. Wire_transfer_27, that's PDF. Loan_agreement_15.png. Email_docs. It wasn't revenge. It was preparation. Half an hour later, I stared at the $60,000 wire transfer receipt again. There it was. Receipt number 4183. Timestamped 11:46 a.m. March 27th. Just below, in the same email thread, a forwarded Facebook screenshot from that day. Mom posted a photo of Lila in front of the barn. Proud of our girl for stepping up when it mattered most. Same moment my money hit the account. The timeline wasn't chance. They knew. They were erasing me as the funds arrived. The worst part wasn't the rewriting, it was the intent. They hadn't just let it happen. They orchestrated it step by silent step. I exhaled through my nose, typed receipt underscore 4183 into the file name. Then I opened my email, searched thank you. Nothing. Ranch. Payment reminder request. Loan. Only a message from mom. Hope you can get this done before Friday. Not one word of gratitude. Not from her, not dad, not Lila. I sat back. The apartment felt colder. Or maybe I was thawing from years of numbness. No gratitude, no acknowledgement. No, we couldn't have done this without you. Just transactions, expectation. That was twist S5. The thanks that never came. I cracked my knuckles, started typing. Subject. Receipt 4183. To Lila May. Sissy, Clara Ray, Henry Ray. Body. Asterisk hi, Lila. Just confirming I've removed myself from all future ranch-related transactions. Please update your autopay and legal responsibility records. You can coordinate with the bank moving forward. Asterisk no signature. I hit send. My chest trembled, not fear but release. The cleanest boundary I'd ever drawn, with a paper trail. I stood, walked to the window. Outside, streetlights flickered on in quiet succession. A couple passed, holding hands, laughing about something only they understood. I wondered what it felt like to be seen without needing proof. Then I sat back down and cried. Not from regret, but grief. Not because I wished I hadn't sent the email, but because part of me still hoped someone might call, might say, asterisk you mattered. We saw you. We knew it was you all along. Asterisk no one called. I wiped my face, picked up my phone. No new messages, just stale silence until 20 minutes later. It buzzed. An Instagram story from Lila. I hesitated, then tapped. A candlelit corner of the ranch kitchen. A wine glass half full. Her fingers posed delicately near the rim. Caption. Asterisk some people are only generous when it's quiet. Once they're loud, it was never love. Asterisk I stared for a full minute. Her warning. A passive jab wrapped in faux poetry, designed to make me feel guilty, to crawl back into silence. But I was done shrinking. I didn't reply to Lila's story. I let her caption settle like dust over everything already broken inside me. Some people are only generous when it's quiet. It sounded like wisdom for the naive, but to me it was a weapon in lace. That Saturday evening, I sat curled on my couch, lights dim, scrolling my feed. My thumb froze when I saw it, tagged under Mom's latest Facebook post. Sad when those closest to you forget their roots. Not addressed to me by name, that was the art of manipulation. But the comments didn't hold back. She was always standoffish, huh? Some people change when they make a little money. Asterisk she must have thought the ranch was beneath her. Asterisk. Then, below, Lila's photo of herself smiling in front of the barn, captioned. Everything they do is performative. My jaw clenched. Performative hung like smoke, poisoning years of silent sacrifice. She was flipping the script, turning my restraint into artifice, my sacrifice into a vanity project. That was twist S7. The feed turns. For a moment, I couldn't decide if I was more furious or heartbroken. Then it got worse. Clicking through old memories, I noticed changes. Tags gone, captions rewritten. My post from 2 years ago about renovating the north barn gone. A quote I wrote on the ranch's donation site one dad said he was proud of vanished. Even family photos where I stood with mud-stained boots and a sunburnt smile were cropped just enough to erase me. It was happening in real time, not just gaslighting but digital exile. Twist S10. Eraser in real time. I closed the laptop, then reopened it. This time I didn't scroll. I logged in to speak. My Facebook page had been quiet for months. Occasional birthday likes, holiday posts. Now it was a war room. I uploaded a screenshot of the wire transfer, receipt number 4183, and typed one line. Asterisk I didn't need credit, but I won't accept erasure. Receipt 4183. Asterisk no drama, no sob story, just facts. The post was live for less than 10 minutes before comments poured in. Wait, you paid that? I remember you in the freezing rain hauling lumber behind the barn. Asterisk you never said a word about this. Asterisk messages came from classmates, an old neighbor who borrowed a generator during a blackout, even Mr. Caldwell. I always knew you were why they stayed afloat. By night's end, it had over 200 comments and shares, not viral by internet standards, but viral for Willow Creek. Not a word from my family, not even denial. That silence was louder than a scream. Sunday morning, I woke to find Lila had restricted my access to her page. Her stories, highlights, gone. I'd been shadow removed from her curated influencer life. Mom unfriended me. Petty, but confirmation. They weren't interested in healing, only ashamed they'd been caught. Dad, still silent. The silence of a man who could have stopped this but didn't. For once, I didn't chase it. I didn't text to ask why. I didn't call to clarify. I closed notifications and sat with the stillness. Not the aching kind, but the kind marking a new boundary. Let them sit in their curated echo chamber. I had truth, proof, and now a voice. As I logged off, a notification popped up. A DM from local news weekly. *Hi, Nora. Saw your post about the ranch. Would you share your side of the legacy? People would want to hear it. I stared, then smiled, slow, measured. If they wanted public sympathy, they should have stayed quiet. I was just getting started. I hadn't finished reading the DM when my phone pinged again. A message from Mrs. Evelyn, our elderly Willow Creek neighbor who never texted, only called or dropped off pies with scribbled notes. Her name gave me pause. Your parents want to meet in person. No emojis, no cushioning, just a warning dressed as information. I let the screen go dark and stared at the wall. It was coming, the confrontation I knew was inevitable. This time, I wouldn't walk in empty-handed. The next morning, a note slipped under my apartment door. Mom's handwriting, unmistakable. Oh, Nori, if there's anything left between us, come to the ranch Thursday one last time. I folded it carefully, set it by my laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't feel moved. I felt summoned to my own trial. I pulled up the will, the copy they didn't know I had, scanned months ago while sorting paperwork, the one that left me out. I printed it, along with bank receipts, transfer confirmations, invoices, old emails. Zipped into a leather folder, it wasn't for a reunion. It was an exhibit for a court that would never admit guilt, but one I'd stop owing silence to. Thursday arrived gray and still. Willow Creek hadn't changed. The ranch hadn't either, same creaky gate, chipped white paint. Everything felt smaller. Even the house, once vast in memory, seemed to shrink into itself. Mrs. Evelyn waved from across the street. I nodded, then walked up the porch and knocked. Dad opened the door, looking tired, not older, just worn by too many silences. Come in, he said. No hug, no smile. I stepped into the dining room, set with coffee mugs, napkins, a store-bought pie. Lila sat to the right, arms crossed, scowl ready. Clara, at the head, posture perfect, hands tight in her lap. We just want to clear the air, she started. Dad added, you airing things online? This made things harder for us. I laid the folder on the table, opened it slowly, spread the contents like evidence. This isn't about what I posted, I said evenly. It's about what you did long before I said a word. I turned the will to show their signatures, pointed to the wire receipt timestamped with Mom's Facebook post celebrating Lila. Lila shifted, silent. I wasn't done. I pulled my phone, tapped the recording app, hit play. Lila's voice filled the room. You're the one who paid for it all. I just thought they'd never take your side. A shallow inhale from Mom, her eyes darting. Dad pushed his chair back. What is this, a setup? No, I replied. It's accountability. Clara reached forward, trembling. You're tearing this family apart. I met her eyes. No, I'm holding it together by telling the truth, something you've avoided from the start. Lila stood. You think this makes you noble? I think it makes me sane. She shook her head. You're toxic, Nori. You've always needed a villain to feel relevant. That stung like a slap, but I didn't flinch. You know what's toxic? Rewriting history and calling it healing. Dad walked out silent. I didn't follow. Mom cried, not from guilt, but because exposure isn't graceful. Lila glared. You're destroying this family, she whispered. I stood tall, folded my folder shut. No, I'm done letting it destroy me. As I walked out, I didn't expect applause, apology, or redemption, just distance. That was enough. Before I reached the car, my phone vibrated. An email. We'd like to feature your story in our series on financial abuse in families. I sat behind the wheel, watching the house shrink in the rearview. For years, I stayed quiet to protect them. Now I'd speak to protect myself and others watching. 2 days after the confrontation, I sat in the quiet waiting area of the local news studio, clutching an untouched paper cup of lukewarm coffee. A flickering TV played cheerful spring festival updates. Surreal, almost laughable that my story was next. The receptionist nodded. "They'll bring you in shortly." I nodded back. I hadn't told anyone. Not coworkers, friends, or distant cousins who messaged after my Facebook post. I wanted to do this alone, without spectators. Minutes later, I sat across from Janelle Brooks, a local anchor known for charity drives, not hard-hitting interviews. Today, her voice carried weight. Cameras rolled, lights brightened. Her first question came softly but directly. "What does it feel like to be erased by your own family?" I didn't blink. It doesn't feel like anything at first. It's quiet, subtle. One day, they stop saying your name. Then your photos vanish from frames. The things you paid for become someone else's triumph. It's like dying in slow motion, except you're still paying the bills. I didn't cry. My voice stayed steady. I spoke about the loan, the cosign debt, the receipts, the years I kept the ranch afloat while Lila turned it into her online brand. I spoke about my parents' silence. Not malice, but a belief that love meant sacrificing one child for another. Then I said something unrehearsed. "They taught me being the strong one meant staying quiet. I've unlearned that now." The interview wrapped in 10 minutes, but Janelle's expression told me it would spread. By nightfall, it was everywhere. On Facebook, people tagged friends. "This is it." On Reddit, a thread exploded under rural family scandals. Comments poured in. Asterisk, "This is my life. I co-signed my parents' mortgage and got cut out, too." Asterisk, "She said what I've never had the guts to say." For the first time, I didn't feel like an anomaly. I felt like a thread in a tapestry of people who gave everything to family and got ghosted in return. Strangers became a mirror. I wasn't alone. Lila, predictably, responded. A muted Instagram story, her sipping coffee in the ranch kitchen, captioned, "Some people love drama." No names, no context, just venom to keep her followers on her side. Mom deactivated her Facebook by Sunday. Her last post, a blurry quilt photo with, "Some bonds are better left in the past." Dad's number sent one text, "Don't contact us again." I stared, then deleted the thread. I didn't feel gutted or victorious, just clear. I wasn't chasing anymore. That night, I sat by my apartment window, watching streetlights reflect off parked cars. The silence felt different. Not heavy, not aching, just real. I opened my laptop, logged into my blog, untouched for a year. New post. The invisible daughter. I didn't rant or name names. I wrote about silence, redefined loyalty, the weight of unacknowledged love, how it takes years to realize you weren't asking for praise, just presence. "You don't have to scream to be heard," I wrote, "but you do have to stop whispering." I hit publish. Minutes later, an email dinged. A nonprofit I'd never heard of. Subject, "Invitation to speak at our spring summit on financial abuse in families." Asterisk, "We saw your interview. Your story is powerful. Would you share it with others going through the same?" Asterisk, I leaned back, heart steady. Maybe I wasn't meant to save the ranch. Maybe I was meant to save myself and others like me. 3 weeks later, I stood backstage at the Spring Summit Hall, watching the crowd settle. Banners read, "Redefining Family, Reclaiming Voice." My name appeared on a screen. Keynote speaker, Nora Ray. I exhaled. A volunteer adjusted my mic. "You're up in 2, she whispered. I nodded, hands calm on note cards I'd rewritten for days. But when the announcer called me, I didn't glance at them. I stepped onto the stage. The room, dozens of strangers from different lives, fell still. The hush wasn't nervous. It was reverent. I took a breath. I used to think being a good daughter meant being quiet. My voice was steady, not because I wasn't nervous, but because I wasn't ashamed. I believed if I gave more, loved harder, bent further, they'd see me. When they didn't, I thought I hadn't earned it yet. A ripple moved through the room. Nods, arms folded tighter. I met eyes with a woman in the front row. Mid-40s, soft curls, hands clenched around a tissue, crying openly. "Silence doesn't equal peace," I continued. "Sacrifice doesn't guarantee love." Twist S14. The silent apology wasn't in the mail or an inbox. It was in this room, this response. The crowd rose before I finished my last line. For a minute, I couldn't see the podium. Just a sea of people clapping like they needed to remind themselves it wasn't too late to stop giving their best to those who couldn't say thank you. After, I stayed by the stage as people approached, some hesitant, some like meeting a long-lost sister. A few said, "Thank you." One woman gripped my hands. "I left my family's farm last year, but I still cry when I see tractors." I understood without more words. Another asked, "How did you know it was time to stop helping?" My answer came easily, when I realized I was the only one helping at all. Later that week, a certified envelope waited in my mailbox. Return address, Clara Ray. I brought it inside, set it on the kitchen counter, stared while the kettle boiled. I thought about opening it, then slid it into the drawer by my checkbook and closed it. Some letters aren't meant to be read. Some apologies aren't meant to be unpacked. The silence between us was its own answer. 2 days later, I opened the doors to a new space I'd been building for months. A co-working hub for women in transition, divorcees, survivors, single moms, founders, artists. No one needed to explain why they were there, only what they needed next. On one brick wall, we painted in bold cream letters, "Be your own proof." Mid-morning, as I wiped down a table, a familiar voice called out, "Well, look what you built instead of a barn." Mrs. Evelyn stood at the threshold in a cherry-red cardigan, holding sunflowers. "I always said you were the root that kept them grounded," she said. "Now I see you were meant to plant your own field." I smiled, unforced. I hadn't saved Willow Creek Ranch, but I'd saved something better, myself. The day passed quietly. I closed the workspace at 5, headed to my new loft, simpler, but full of light. The sun dipped outside. I stood with a chamomile mug, watching golden light stretch across the floorboards. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for a text or hoping for a late, shallow apology. I was enough, not barely enough, but whole, like home. Sometimes the deepest betrayal comes not from strangers, but from the silence of those we called family. Nora's story reminds us speaking up isn't revenge, it's survival. Have you ever walked away from someone to protect your peace? If this family drama moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories that speak the truths we're often too afraid to say aloud.